So, what's the big deal with conclusions? All you gotta do is restate your main points and thesis, right? Well, yeah, that's the basic components of a conclusion, but composition isn't really an entirely scientific process. You can't boil it down to simple insertion of all the required elements in the proper place and at the proper time. It's more like a recipe that's been handed down from generations. Yes, there are required ingredients, but you can really vary the final dish by changing the amount, type, and timing of addition of ingredients to the mix. There's a big difference in flavor between bread and cupcakes, but they utilize many of the same ingredients. The variation depends on how you utilize those ingredients. So, the conclusion. In its most basic form, the conclusion should include a summary of your main points and a restatement of your thesis. It should inform the reader, but it should also galvanize and intrigue the reader. The conclusion is one of the most important parts of your essay, and so you don't want to allow yourself to be satisfied with a basic conclusion. It's your last chance to remind the reader what you're talking about, why it's important, and why they should agree with you. If someone is doing research to determine if your essay will be useful in their writing, your conclusion may be the only part of your essay they read. First impressions are important in social situations, but in composition, last impressions might be even more important. And that's what the conclusion is, your final chance at a last impression on your reader. It's literally your last word on the subject. So by all means, summarize your main points, restate your thesis, but don't forget to connect the dots between what you've proven and what you're claiming. Explain why what you've said is important. Connect your discussion to larger questions, subjects, and issues. Examine the possible implications of your research. Suggest possible avenues of future research. Ask rhetorical or semi-rhetorical questions about your area of research. Basically, explain to your reader the relevance of what you've said. For example, you've written a competent and logical essay about the effects of poverty on literacy development in small children. You've got solid sources and you do a good job proving your point. Your writing style is accessible and enjoyable. All of this suggests that you've written an excellent essay. But if you don't convince your reader that what you've written matters or is important, your essay will likely be forgotten. So why do the effects of poverty on literacy development in small children matter? What are some of the possible outcomes if the situation is not addressed and or reversed? How does the education of poor children affect your reader? Are there any connected issues that your discussion naturally leads to? Now that you've examined the effects of poverty on literacy development in small children, what next? And why should your reader care? There's no specific way to write a proper conclusion. It's an ending, and there are all sorts of endings. But at the very least, your ending should tie up any loose ends and answer any questions you've raised while reminding your reader of what you're saying and why you're saying. So, in conclusion, conclusions are important because they serve as the final song in a composition-based concert set. A weak final song leaves the audience anxious and confused. A strong final song sends the audience home singing all your greatest hits. Conclusions should include a basic summary of your main points and arguments, as well as a restatement of your thesis. But more importantly, a good conclusion should also remind, reinforce, demonstrate relevance, make connections, and direct further inquiry. Conclusions may be fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. They're just the last paragraph of an essay. But without conclusions, is there ever any resolution? Without conclusions, who knows what the point of anything is? And without conclusions, how would we ever quantify what we think about anything? Conclusions provide meaning and form and identity to your words, and perhaps further research is called for into the effects of bad conclusions on the reception of otherwise good essays. If nothing else, such research would give us more insight into our writing processes and aid in the teaching of composition.